Welcome to Vacations for Canadians, the podcast. We've got the experience and expertise to help you travel smarter, dream bigger, and make your next vacation unforgettable. Now let's talk about it. I'm your host, Teena Dowd, and today we're diving into the world of adults-only cruising, aka no kids allowed. I'm joined by Sean from Virgin Voyages, who is going to help us unpack what makes this cruise line and this style of cruising so unique. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you.
I can't wait to talk about this because having experienced it myself, there's definitely some cool surprises. So, Sean, let's start with a big question. Adult-only cruising is becoming a huge trend. Why do you think that's resonating with travelers right now?
Well, it's resonating because many travelers are looking for experiences that are more tailored to their lifestyle. For couples, friends, even solo travelers, it creates a space where the atmosphere naturally shifts. Think about quieter mornings, later nights, and entertainment designed for adults rather than families. There's also a broader trend towards intentional vacations. People want to be fully disconnected and socialize with like-minded travelers. Adult-only environments remove the traditional cruise compromises and allow the experiences feel more like a floating boutique hotel than a conventional cruise. Families have incredible options available to them, but adults, they're seeking spaces designed for them. And cruise lines now are responding by becoming more sophisticated, more social, and even more experiential.
So, do you know what inspired Virgin to create an adults-only cruise line?
Yeah, Virgin Voyages wasn't just stumbled upon. It was a calculated and kind of like an industrial disruption by Sir Richard Branson and the founding team. The inspiration was really adult by design philosophy, and it can be kind of broken into four key drivers. First and foremost, we wanted to captivate and capture that 85% of North Americans that have never cruised. Richard's primary inspiration was actually personal. He had never actually been on a cruise because he found traditional cruising options stuffy and somewhat boring. Market research conducted by the Virgin team found, like I said, 85% of people had never cruised before, and they felt like an experience that Virgin could offer would be something unique. By removing children out of the equation, we could immediately distance ourselves from the family kind of theme park image that keeps, modern travelers away from sea.
For sure.
The next element was that design efficiency. When we start thinking about traditional megaships, for example, there's massive areas of real estate that are dedicated to kids clubs, those teen lounges, and the water park experiences. By eliminating these areas, Virgin could repurpose the square footage to have more adult-centric luxuries.
That's interesting.
Think about it this way. Instead of having a nursery, we got Squid Ink, that first, tattoo parlor at sea. Instead of a splash pad, you get the Manor, our 2-level nightclub inspired by Richard Branson's first recording studio.
I love that. And I still have my tattoos that I got on Virgin.
I might have got a few myself over the years. And then last but not least, it was really around that direct feedback from parents. Focus groups revealed that even the most dedicated and, of course, loving parents often crave that kind of idea of a hall pass vacation. They wanted a sanctuary where they could be individuals rather than caregivers, enjoying a sophisticated meal or even that late night cocktail without the background noise of kind of like a floating family resort.
For sure. So I have taken my adult children on Virgin Voyages, and I think that's a really good niche market because it's great for those 20-year-olds and it's also really great for those 50-year-olds, and we can sail together and really enjoy the ships together. Would you say Virgin, though, is more marketing towards couples, friends, or solos? Or maybe all?
It's a little bit of everything, to be honest. The reality who's on board is very diverse and sometimes surprisingly grounding, right? Like you said, you've sailed with us, and you probably notice like that typical quote unquote sailor is not one person, but more around a specific mindset, if you were, right? When you look at it, you've got a couple key components to look at. Like the age reality is Gen X is our core. Contrary to the millennial mixer reputation that some people that haven't, sailed on us might perceive, the average age of our Virgin Voyages sailors is somewhere around that 48 to 49, but that's always depending on the destination and, of course, the length of the voyage. This is like a work hard, play hard kind of crowd. this fits really well with that Gen X territory. It's, established professionals, empty nesters, or parents that are taking what I call that hall pass week away from the kids. And it really works because they've got that earning power of luxury, but they're not ready to be hushed in an atmosphere of some other traditional luxury brands. They want that Michelin star dining experience like at the Wake, but they're also willing to take to the dance floor at the Manor for like a 90s, DJ set. The other kind of mix is that the couples, right? And that's probably the largest group overall when you start looking outside of age. And they're really the backbone of every one of our sailing experience. You focus on that modern romance. We see everything from honeymooners in their 20s to boomer couples celebrating their 40th anniversary with us. That adults by design philosophy allows couples to actually be couples again without distractions of like family logistics. They spend more time in that thermal suites, in the sip champagne lounge, or maybe really just enjoying those long, unhurried dinners. But then you kind of look at what I really love personally is that emergence of that solo travelers. And we've kind of created this "you're not alone" community, right? We want it to be one of the most solo friendly lines in the industry. And there's a huge distinction really on board between quote unquote being alone and traveling solo. We've got the solo insiders, the solo sea view cabins that remove that financial barrier, that single supplement that sometimes is a detractor to some of the solo travelers. And then we've got that option where it's that we call the founding family, right? And it's really great for these solo travelers to meet up at these solo traveler meetups on the first night. And then they spend the rest of their voyage kind of as like a festival family where they come and go from that family as different activities and experiences, tickle their fancy.
That's really cool.
And then last but not least, you've got the group of friends. And this is kind of like that celebration squads, right? I was just on one of the ships where I had a group of wonderful women that I interact with that were celebrating a divorce. And, why not? You've got those milestone moments, we've got those 40th birthdays, 50th birthdays, 60th birthdays, and those friend anniversaries. And I see a lot of those from like those groups of friends that have graduated life together, high school, university, whatever the case may be. And they love the social design around things because we're designed around these groups, right? One of my favorite places to dine on board the ship is Gumbay, our Korean barbecue, right? Or having that chance where you can be hanging out with your friends and one of them can pull up their phone, give it a little shake, and you got that shake for champagne moments, right? That really begs for you to travel with your crew as a whole.
That's great, Sean. And thanks. Now you've made me hungry talking about Gumbay. I really do miss my Gumbay. So, Sean, what do people find surprising when they first experience an adults-only cruise?
Well, I think probably most times for the first timers, they expect that lack of kids on board to be the main event, right? I think they quickly realize the absence of children is just the foundation of an adult-only cruise. And it's really a much deeper shift into the ship's DNA, right? So first thing that people kind of find surprising is the calm factor in the common areas, right? Think about like a traditional cruise, right? Simple tasks like getting to the elevator or walking down the hallway can be somewhat chaotic sometimes, right? The surprise for us is people really enjoy the flow of our ships, without strollers, large families coming and going, or children running to the next activity. The common areas feel significantly more spacious, I guess would probably be the right word. The elevators are fast, the hallways are quieter, and it removes that layer of travel stress that you didn't even realize was there. But what I really think is kind of neat is every night can be a date night energy, right? So instead of having to, ship the kids off to the kids club so mom and dad or whoever can go enjoy a romantic dinner together, every night is like that. And what I like with that as well is no one is coming up to you and saying, okay, you need to leave. We've got another table set for your time. We kind of just figure things out. So you get that unrushed experience.
So, Sean, the elevators are quicker because no one's pressing all the buttons.
You know what, though? I have seen adults push multiple buttons too at times. But yes, in theory, that is true.
So we're starting to see other cruise lines dip their toes, so to speak, in the adults-only space with either select sailings or one luxury line just recently announced it's also becoming adults-only. So how do you see that shaping traveler expectations and what continues to set Virgin Voyages apart from these other brands?
First and foremost, I think this is a really great thing for our industry as a whole. I think having more options for people is always great. And for us at Virgin Voyages, it's a validation that the kid-free movement is here and it's strong. When you start thinking about it, I always like to say there's kind of, 3 points. Adults only should be a standard, right? And, instead of it being a perk, it's a standard. Travelers now can expect 100% of the ship's real estate, from pools to the social clubs, to be tailored to them. It's that idea of social versus serene, right? Traditional luxury lines use like an adult only policy to sometimes ensure like a library like atmosphere, that quiet moments. Virgin, however, uses the age limit to remove those filters. We can host, an amazing drag bingo experience one moment and then move over to an immersive circus style performance without having to worry being quote unquote family friendly. It's a vibrant playground, not just a quiet one. And then I think with the other element is that always included value, right? There are still some lines that, you've got the price to get on and the price to get off mentality, even with the premium brands. Think of things like adding Wi-Fi into the package, or if those adults want to experience a fitness class. Virgin has always included that over $1,000 of value in its base fares. You've got those 20 plus restaurants to choose from that are all included. You've got Wi-Fi, the essential beverages without the need of a card to ask for like a soda. And what I love is those group fitness classes. It just removes the friction from that luxury experience that these travelers are looking for.
So I love that Virgin includes Wi-Fi because honestly, it's a bare necessity in my mind.
Yeah, we say it's a basic human right.
It is a basic human right. You're right.
But what you'll notice though, I'm sure you've seen it, is we don't have people glued to their devices either. They're using Wi-Fi to check in on those kids because over 50% of those people are choosing to intentionally leave their children at home and experience an adult-only experience. And they're using it then to share those experiences, those FOMO moments with their family and friends that, for whatever reason, couldn't join them on that experience.
Exactly. So having sailed on Virgin Voyages 5 times now personally, one thing that always stands out to me is the atmosphere. It doesn't feel like a typical cruise ship. I love to tell potential clients, I think the founding group really took all the rules and threw them up to the sky and let them fall where they should be. So think no cannonballs in the pool, no early bedtimes, just cool vibes, cocktails, and uninterrupted ocean views. And a lively, adults only energy that's just a little more playful and a little more daring than what you'd usually expect on a cruise.
You hit such a great point, right? That goes back to that idea that I was saying around that modern romance of sailings. Like, we still have a mix of that old school maritime glam, that people are accustomed to when they get on cruises, but then we have that high end, land-based boutique luxury. When we designed our lady ships, our goal wasn't to build a better cruise ship. It was to completely break the traditional mold. Most ships are designed by maritime architects who've been doing this for decades and doing it really well. But the result sometimes it has the same look and, more importantly, the same feel as the others. Virgin, we took that different path. Think about traditional mega ships, right? They kind of feel sometimes like floating malls, huge spaces, a bit anonymous. We intentionally stayed in that mid-size category. And for those that don't know, it's about 2,700 sailors or clients on board. We wanted to have design insight. So instead of one larger atrium, we created more intimate pockets, like the dock, which feels kind of like a rustic beach club in Ibiza. By breaking the ship into smaller, highly themed spaces, it feels more personal and curated, just like a boutique hotel would be. We also wanted to create an experience around that smart cabin tech and that seabed experience that is available in all of our cabins. Traditionally, a cruise ship bed takes up 75% of the room. Our seabeds have the opportunity, if your clients want, to be transformed into an L-shaped sofa, turning that cabin into a living room for socializing during the day. And my favorite, our sea terraces feature that iconic red hammock. In reality, it's just a simple design, but these are hand-woven by artisans in Thailand, so they've got a story around them, and they become the ultimate symbol of that relaxed adult by design luxury.
I may or may not have had some naps in the hammock.
If you haven't, I would be very disappointed.
So, one of my favorite things about Virgin Voyages is the shows. So, can you explain the concept of Virgin Voyages entertainment?
I think first and foremost is the introduction of our happenings cast, the no cruise director approach. We don't have a cruise director shouting on the PA, throughout the day. Instead, we have these happenings cast, which is typically a group of 12 people. These are basically unique personalities like the diva, which is our resident drag queen, the foodie, the gamer, or the balance. What it looks like is, you might be sitting at the bar having a wonderful cocktail. And the charmer, who's our magician, might pull up and do a close up front magic trick. Or the gamer might start an impromptu Nintendo Switch tournament in our social club. We've got the naturalist and the lumberjack / lumberjill. And that's really to bring in that destination's energy to life through real conversations instead of traditional structured lectures. The other element is we don't have like that white night that traditionally goes on every cruise line. We have Scarlet Night, which I humbly say is the industry's best party. It's that one night everyone talks about where the entire ship, not just one deck, the entire ship, every hallway, every bar, every restaurant is transformed, a little bit with red lights and pop-up experiences. This night comes to an end or to a climax, I guess, if you wish, at the pool deck with a massive immersive show that ends with the cast and in reality, a lot of our sailors getting into the pool, even in full cocktail attire. It's spontaneous. Can be a little wild if you wish, but it's something you wouldn't see on a traditional cruise ship. And within those micro venues, we have those interactive micro events. Instead of just that huge bingo session in the theater, we do fun things like grog walks, which is kind of like a high energy ship-wide pub crawl that is led by our happenings cast. We've got the VHS workout, that 80s themed aerobics where everyone wears a little bit of neon and some spandex and those good old leg warmers. And then you've got the social club in a adult playground. This has got, some of the, I always say the unhealthiest, but still damn good food. It's got air hockey, foosball, oversized board games that you can actually end up making friends with people in the next table. But going back, the no PA system, in my opinion, really means total freedom. One of the most disruptive things we can do is have silence. Unless there's an emergency, you're not going to hear a booming voice telling you what to do. You can use the Virgin Voyages mobile app to see what's happening, but otherwise, the soundtrack of the ship is just the music curated by our own DJs. It allows us to have an organic flow where you find your spot, whether it's that hammock we just talked about on your terrace, or maybe it's that hidden booth in Pink Agave and you're just enjoying yourself.
So I really do love that these shows are so immersive between the performer and audience, but obviously participation is optional.
Sure. Really, what we wanted to do was have that probably be one of the most disruptive parts of the experience, to be completely honest. You know, we don't want people coming onto our ships looking to expect like a tribute to the 70s or their traditional Broadway show. It's more around creating an experience that changes the physical way one experiences that entertainment. So we talked about the Red Room, right? It's a little bit different the way it's designed on there, but allows us to basically, with that design, remove the fourth wall. So you can look at a show like Dual Reality, which is our acrobatic retelling of Romeo and Juliet. And you're not just sitting from afar, you're literally inches away for some amazing world-class circus performers. We've removed the passive watching for more immersive storytelling. One of my favorite, the misbehaving effect. It's a little chaotic. It's got high energy where the audience is shouting and participating the whole time. It's more around building a sense of community within 90 minutes versus, here's our quiet curtain call. And then probably the festival like. So we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't bring in kind of our musical heritage, right? So what we wanted to do is bring in some of the best entertainment out there, where we brought, icons like Niles Rodgers and Chic on board the ship for an experience. It turns the ship into more of like a floating music festival around these specific artists. When we look at, traditional cruise lines that are not adult only, they have to almost have like an early set list of entertainment and then an evening set of entertainment because they're really catering to two groups of people. They want to be family friendly, of course, but then there's also the children going to bed and then the adults wanting, maybe something a little bit more. But because we're an 18 plus environment through and through, we don't have to water down the humor or the themes to make it family friendly. We have that resident drag queen on board our ship, the Diva. She can be our authentic, hilarious, and sometimes even edgy self. Our shows can have that late night cabaret feel because everyone in the room is fundamentally an adult.
I love that. So one of the questions I hear from travelers is an adults only cruise right for me? Like, should we expect that it's young travelers and party crowds?
I think that's just a total myth, right? The sweet spot is the Gen X. Do we have different energy zones depending on what you're looking for? Absolutely. If those adults want a place to dance, you head over to the Manor. If you want to have a 3-hour unhurried dinner and then grab a book and enjoy it, you can do that too. It's the most peaceful cruise for people that want that. And it's also the highest energy cruise for those people that want that. I think the long and short of it is an adult-only cruise is what you can make it. It's not pre-described. It is really your holiday.
That's a great answer because my personal philosophy around travel has always been that the best vacation isn't a one-size-fits-all. It's really one that reflects your own personal style, energy, and what you actually enjoy. If today's conversation shows us anything, it's that adults-only cruising offers a completely different way to experience the ocean. From incredible dining and entertainment to relaxed atmosphere designed for grown-ups, it's a style of travel that really resonates with modern travelers. So thanks, Sean, for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And for anyone who has never tried it before, it's a cruise experience that often surprises people in the best possible way. If the idea of an adults-only cruise sounds like your kind of vacation, our team at Vacations for Canadians would love to help you explore it. We can help you choose that perfect itinerary, cabin, and sailing. Just visit us at vacationsforcanadians.com or connect with anyone on our team to start planning your next kid-free adventure.